Good evening. Hello. Welcome, everyone. I would like to call the April 27th Melville Board of Education meeting to order. If we could please all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I'd like to do roll call. Jeff Woolman. Here. Scott Hugerich. He's on the phone somewhere in the... Can you hear us, Scott?
I'm here.
Right.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
Right.
Sorry.
Tori Belke.
Here.
Patrick McKelvey.
Here.
Grace Wright. Here. Jean Preto.
Present.
And I'm Peggy Hassler. And I'd also like to introduce our two students, Eric Plasterer and Jenna Jobber. If I could please get a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, moving on to communications. First, we will have Hageman Elementary. Dr. Meschke. Huh? How are we doing, Hageman? Oh, Julie Durham. I'm so sorry. That's Woolwin. My bad. Sorry, Julie. That was what it was, I guess.
Yes, I was Woolwin 14 years.
Julie
Good evening,
Durham.
everyone. All right, it's my pleasure to introduce Hageman Elementary's Garden Club. Garden Club has a total of 18 members from our 4th and 5th grade classes. With the support of our teachers, Miss Julie Dooley and Mrs. Jessica Ballman, this club has met in the fall and now spring to beautify our campus. This dedicated group of students has weeded all the garden beds in our campus, planted tulip bulbs, replaced mulch, planted and weeded around our front circle, and has recently worked on replacing the garden boxes in our school garden that were starting to rot. Just this week, they were working hard to remulch our garden area. Their work will be enjoyed in the months to come by our school community. Students use these spaces to read and work on outside learning with their classes. We appreciate these student leaders and their teachers for the time that they have given to make our school a better place. I want to personally thank them for all of their hard work. And the members that we do have here tonight are Carissa Fogelbach, Isabella Guerrero, is Armand here? Ahmad was here. Drake Rhodes, Annie Shimkus, Tony Gastaldi, Emily Markham, Lily Byrich, and Aubrey Bailey. Thank you all very much.
All right, great job, guys. Next up is Melville High School, Dr. Landher. Got that one right.
All right, good evening.
Well, we always appreciate the opportunity to try to come late in the school year because we like to try to highlight as many of our students as we can and some of the great things that they've done. That always makes it a challenge trying to get as much as we can into this presentation. So we're going to start off tonight talking about two of our seniors, Elisa Hang and Ian Ferguson. They're both being recognized as part of the Missouri 100 Scholars Program, which is an academic decathlon that represents their hard work across 10 different categories. So Lisa is recognized as a Missouri 100 Scholar, putting her in the top half of the top 1% of all graduating seniors, and Ian is an honorable mention scholar, putting him in that top 1%. In addition to the Scholars Program, Ian is also a part of the National Honor Society for Speech and Debate. And then you see a few other things for Lisa. She is a National Merit Scholar, and she's a finalist for the U.S. Presidential Scholarship recipient as well. And then she represents Melville on the state level from the HOSA program as a state officer. So she's had really some cool opportunities to bring issues from our area to Jefferson City. Next, I'm going to talk about Matthew Wolf. You guys that had an opportunity to walk through the special program showcase might have had a chance to talk to him a little bit about his My Path, and that's just kind of one small piece of what Matt does. He's just one of those great all-around kids. In addition to being the Lee May Chamber Commerce Award recipient, he was our Melville High School Heisman recipient, and there is a male and female athlete that get that distinction from the high school, from each school around the state. But then all the state board picks one student. So Matt was actually the state of Missouri representative, which was really a cool honor for him. And that kind of combines a lot of his dedication to his studies, his sport, and his community. So that his community is really important to him. Matt does a lot for our building, but also the larger Melville community. So one thing that actually he's working on right now is kind of an extension of his My Path. He did a lot of work with graphics and things like that. He's helping design a vinyl wall wrap. If you're familiar with like what Oakville has in their front entranceway, it's something kind of like that we're going to have outside of our Gym A. But it's really cool that it's going to be student design. So Matt's been working a lot on that this spring, and something that'll be installed over the summer. Next up, our next senior that we wanted to highlight was Caitlin Birch, who is a two-time state qualifier for golf. I felt like we couldn't recognize Caitlin without giving a shout out to the entire golf program for the outstanding season that they had. So also in the picture with Caitlin is Eva Brown, who's a freshman who took second in state this year. So Caitlin, being a two-time qualifier, was also a two-sport qualifier this year, not just in golf, but also in dive. And she's competing in track as well after being in the My Path presentation tonight. She'll be at Eureka as part of the track meet tomorrow, and has her sights set on a strong finish to that season as well. Next, we have Colin Maloney. He is our St. Louis Post-Dispatch Scholar athlete. So, he excels not only on the field as a baseball player and a pitcher, he's committed to play at Arkansas State next year, but in the classroom does phenomenal as well. He's a member of the All-Conference, All-District, and Academic All-State team. And kind of just a side note, a good story on Colin. He's just, again, another great kid. And I could keep going on and on about all of our great students here at Melville. But a few weeks ago, there was, bad storms that we had. We had just purchased new mats for our track, for the jumping, for high jump and pole vault. And there was concern from our track coaches that they had heard that the mats had blown onto the fence going into Matthias and where that they're going to get ripped. So Dr. Champion and I were going to come up and check them out. And when we got here, Colin was already here because he was getting some extra work in the batting cages with his younger brother. And he is helping one of our track kids get him all off the mat, get him realigned. So again, just took that upon himself, knew that it was something that he wanted to help out with. Handful of other seniors. Anna Valroy was a district champion, first place in women's wrestling, and qualified for state. Callie McCourt, who is one of our featured twirlers for the Melville Majorettes, represented us in the Fabulous Fox Teen Talent Competition. And Ella Burns, who was also out there earlier today, was a two-time international qualifier for DECAs, and she just got back from Orlando earlier this week, where she competed against over 200 students just in her one category. I also want to give a shout out to our spring musical. If you guys have had the opportunity to see any of the productions in the last several years, I think they just keep getting better, keep upping their game, and it's really impressive to see. And Footloose was no different. Whether, I guess, some of our seniors, Ellie Neighbors, Kamani Collins, Cameron Ulmer, and others in the cast and crew did a great job. Many of them are featured in the senior-directed one-acts that are happening across the hall, both Friday and Saturday. So an opportunity to go check those out if you're interested. Last two things, just one, wanted to highlight our service learning. Earlier last week, when our sophomores and juniors were taking the pre-ACT or ACT or work keys, our freshman class went out and volunteered in several different organizations around the district. So they did go to some of our elementary schools and help out in different classrooms, or went to places like Jefferson Barracks or different food pantries and just helped out in the community. So it was a great opportunity for our freshmen to bond with their TAP class, but then also give back to the community. And finally, our last piece of recognition I wanted to shout out was our Special Olympics event. It's one of our favorite days at Mehlville. We have over 17 different county schools come and 224 athletes that are participating in that event. About 400 of our students who volunteer. So you can just see some of those pictures there. But our steering committee group is made up of about 25 students that spend all spring planning it. And then again, those 400 volunteers that serve as a buddy or a timer or help with the concessions or other things. But it's great because those students, give their day to make sure that those athletes really enjoy their experience. So just a few of our highlights from the year, and just wanted to share those with you.
All right, fantastic. Are any of the kids here that you talked about?
They were out there,
They're
but
out
then
there.
we let them go after that. Yep.
All right, well,
Thank you.
congratulations to all of them. Thank you. Next is MNEA, Dina McKelvey.
Good evening. It's always my pleasure to honor two students. Tonight we'll have one from Hageman and one from Melville High School. So if the teacher and student from Hageman could please approach the podium.
I have had the pleasure of being Isabella's fifth grade teacher this year, and I'm honored to be able to present her with this award. Since the very first day of school, Isabella has been a role model in the classroom and throughout the entire school. Beyond being an outstanding student, always working her hardest, what stands out most to me about Isabella is her genuine kindness towards others. The understanding and empathy she shows others is well beyond any other 11-year-old I have ever met. Isabella is one of the most compassionate, respectful, kind, well-mannered, and honest students I have known. She lives by the golden rule, treating others the way she wants to be treated. I remember a day when Isabella earned 2 positive office referrals from 2 different teachers in the same day. She instinctively wanted to go and tell the other teacher to give it to someone else since she already earned one. I made her accept both because I wanted her to know how much she is appreciated and how special her kindness is. Isabella's positivity is infectious. Others want to be around her. She has the type of confidence and kindness that can change the world, and I can't wait to see and hear about the incredible things I know she will accomplish.
If the teacher and student from Melville High School could please approach the podium.
Hi, it's good to be here. Melville NEA and the MHS staff would like to nominate Azido Ahmed Gul. Oh, she said no. Well, at least help me.
Ahmad Gul.
I see. Because I want to honor the fact that she's here. Azido is a senior at Melville High School and an exemplary example of a portrait of a graduate. Azido transferred to Melville at the beginning of her high school career, so she's new to our district, and she started right away on her path to graduating with honors. Even through virtual school, she took classes that would challenge her and finished with all A's and B's. Since we've returned to school, she's continued to advance her knowledge with AP and college prep classes. I met Azido for the first time in one of my engineering classes. She was quiet, reserved, but focused. But then she joined our competitive robotics team that I coach, and then she really blossomed. She increased her communication skills by working with others. Her creativity and her critical thinking grew as she led the electrical team in wiring the robot. Further, her persistence in making a difference took shape as she taught the next group. So she's left a legacy. She's made sure everyone felt a valuable team member, including those that have often felt marginalized, and began to focus on the needs to recycle, reduce, and reuse through her MyPath program. Azido is heading to Missouri State University, my alma mater, to pursue a degree in chemistry. And I, for one, look forward to see the difference she makes in the future and in the world.
I'd also like to mention how impressive all of the student showcases were out there. Marge, I think you probably had a huge part to do with that. The projects just in the last year are incredibly unbelievable. So very impressed. So thank everyone for all of their participation in that. All right, now we're moving on to open period for patron comments. We have one person signed up, Dina McKelvey. I don't think I need to tell you the rules, but as you know, 3 minutes will be allotted. The board is accountable to the state for protecting the legal rights of the schools, employees, students, parents, and others. Discussion of individuals or specific situations will not be allowed. The board will strictly enforce these rules, and speakers will be interrupted if they discuss matters that might violate board rules and policy.
Thank you. I am speaking here not only as the president of Melville NEA, representing all professional staff in our district, but also as a teacher, a parent, and a community member. I am incredibly proud of our community for choosing to support teachers in public education in April by passing Prop E. We wish to thank the Melville-Oakville community for valuing their hardworking teachers, librarians, and counselors and support staff that work tirelessly to provide quality education for the children that live in this community. Each year, we see more Melville educators leave the district for higher paying teaching positions in districts like Lindbergh, Parkway, Rockwood, and Webster. Most of our teachers live in the community. They work in the community, and many of their children attend schools in this community. I hear from teachers every day about how much they adore their Melville students. I hear they wish they could stay here for the rest of their careers, but because they're saving for college tuition for their children and the rising cost of basic necessities, as well as paying their mortgages, it's hard to not take an opportunity that will help them earn more money to provide for their families. With the passage of Prop E, teachers will hopefully no longer have to choose between providing for their families and the job in the community that they love. In years past, the districts had to freeze salaries or offer meager raises, which over time has put us far below our neighboring districts and made it difficult to attract and retain high-quality staff. During these leaner times, many teachers, librarians, and counselors chose to stay with the district at a financial sacrifice for them and their families. Those that chose to stay with our community throughout difficult times were promised that when the district was doing better, their loyalty would be recognized and they would see the salary increases that they also desperately need. The time is finally here. With the passing of Prop E, the Melville School District will be able to honor their promise to restore steps and to retain our veteran teachers and provide competitive salaries which will stem the tide of teachers leaving for higher paying neighboring districts. Most importantly, the students will continue to receive the great education they so richly deserve. Negotiations on salary between the district and Melville NEA are still ongoing. We are very hopeful that soon we will reach a fair agreement that honors the community's voice and vote to support Melville teachers, librarians, counselors, and support staff. The Melville-Oakville community has listened to the needs of its neighborhood schools and decided to resoundingly support public educators. Melville NEA and the entire school community who work tirelessly to support students wholeheartedly thank you and look forward to a brighter tomorrow.
Hi. All right, thank you. Now I would like to give our student reps a minute to tell us what's going on at their schools. Jenna, do you want to go first?
Sure. The month of April has been a very busy time at Oakville. The Drama Club performed the Greek tragedy Antigone throughout the second week of April. Student council elections were held on April 20th, and on Monday it was announced that our new student body president is Dima Majoud. 8th grade visits were held on April 11th and 12th. The incoming freshmen had the opportunity to tour the school, learn about the sports and activities we offer, and more. Oakville's Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America, FCCLA, had the honor of catering for the Teacher of the Year event. They had a theme of travel and adventure, so they served a variety of international foods. Last Thursday evening, the soccer/football field was dedicated to our former soccer coach, Dave Robin. And lastly, on April 21st, the OHS Chamber Choirs competed in the World Strides Music Festival in Chicago, Illinois. We are so proud of the students. The majority of them were freshmen and sophomores, and they competed against 9th through 12th choirs from around the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric?
So, like Dr. Lander said, Melville hosted Special Olympics last week, where students were able to host games. Yesterday, to help raise money for Special Olympics, Stuco hosted a dodgeball tournament. Last week, while sophomores took the pre-ACT and the juniors took the ACT, freshmen and seniors spent a day helping out at schools and other locations around our community. Melville also hosted an international festival celebrating the different nationalities within our school.
All right, thank you, Eric. Moving on to governance. Establish Melville Board of Education 23-24 meeting dates. Are you going to talk on that?
So the calendar is on eBoard. It's pretty much a mirror of the current year, with board meetings typically on the third Thursday of the month, and then a few more sprinkled in with 2 meetings in February, 2 in April, partially due to reorganization, and 2 in June, as well as a tax rate hearing for a second one in September. However, whether or not to have one in July remains a question. I talked to Dr. Hogg. He was fine with no meeting in July.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or any concerns about any of those dates? Nothing? Can we all agree to not have a meeting in July?
Yes.
Okay. If I could please get a motion to approve the 23-24 Melville Board of Education meeting dates as presented, eliminating the July meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, budget development, Marshall.
All right, that's going to be tiny print up there, so that's why I've handed out hard copies, if you can refer to that. And really just trying to summarize over the high points. Really, the key things in these documents today is really covering how we're right now initially budgeting for capital allocation, the tax revenue, and just the basics on the salary components, which aren't finalized yet. So when we look at page 1 on that handout, that's the cash flow part, and that gives a quick overview at the top. It shows the cash reserve. You'll notice the cash reserve goes down a little bit in fiscal year 24, but it's not because we're losing money, it's just because we have a higher expense base. So that's just how the math formulas work. Nothing wrong there. And then normally we look at the operating gains and look at that pretty much alone. What I've done on the budget here is I've budgeted basically a break even for our size budget, $241,000 as break even. And what I've done is really put any of the extra money into the non-operating capital funds. So when you look at footnote 2 on this schedule, it goes into further explanation. It shows what we put into the capital fund this year and what would be budgeted to go into the capital fund next year. There's significantly more going in. There's like $12 million additional money going into the capital fund. A lot of that's driven by the revenue that we're getting from the tax revenue. So when you look at the $12 million, it gives us a lot of flexibility for looking at all of the district needs to figure out just what you really should be spending that money on. What's the most effective, efficient use of these funds? And there's a number of priorities that should be considered. So, one is, the $30 million of HVAC that will be coming up. We currently have, by the end of this year, a little over $9 million going into the capital fund that's targeted for HVAC. In theory, if we took this $12 million and, tucked it away in the HVAC capital bucket, we would be up to 20 million, over 20 million, and potentially you have a chance to not raise tax rates to the community in the future to pay for the $30 million of HVAC. It's just a consideration. It's just something to look at. You also have interventionists that you might want to spend money on after next year. The interventionists will be covered by ESSER next year, but then after that, we don't have them covered. This could potentially go towards covering interventionists. We have frozen steps to restore the teachers. So we need to look at that, and that's a consideration to look at to see, what may be what you may want to do with that. We have Prop S projects that, some projects are canceled, some are deferred because of the inflation, cost escalations. So, maybe we use some of the money for that. You've also got just, looking at future government funding. A couple summers ago, we were in the middle of the summer and all of a sudden the state told us that we were going to have $1 million less revenue because they were lowering our tax rates due to a statewide lawsuit. So it really gives a lot of flexibility to letting the dust settle and looking at this, through this next year, taking the time to really strategically look at all of the district needs and figuring out just what the priorities are and how to best spend this money, because it's not just a one-time $12 million chunk. It's recurring as long as we don't have like a decrease of tax rates or some other odd thing happening. So anyway, there's a lot of flexibility and opportunity for the district, and this under this method, we would have time to let the dust settle and look at all of our priorities and see what we can do. So anyway, that's on page 1, and then go to the next page is revenue, and basically, as a quick reminder, revenues, 85% of revenues are from really 5 sources. They're from taxes and formula, sales tax, transportation, and early childhood. So the big driver, on here, if you look at the revenue, it's increasing significantly, and that's really all driven by the tax revenue. So in March, when we talked about taxes, we initially estimated that the tax revenue would go up $11.4 million from this year, and that was based on assessed values going up 5%. But we didn't have any county data. So now that we have county data that they supplied preliminary assessed values, and that came after the March board meeting, that came out at 17.8%. So that really drove an extra $10.8 million into the budget. So instead of taxes going up 11.4, it's looking like it's going to go up 22.2 million, unless we have other changes in July and September, and we probably will have some changes, but it shouldn't be anything significant. It should at least be in the ballpark. So normally you're capped at 5% on your AV. So if AV goes up more than 5%, it really doesn't make any difference. You only get to keep a 5% growth. But when you have a tax ballot, you actually, in that particular year, you're able to keep all of that. So not knowing how much we were going to have on AV increases, I went with a 5% estimate because you don't know what you're going to get. When I look at the last 17 years, we only had AV exceeding 5% growth in 5 of those 17 years. And 3 of those, one was 5.4%, there was a 6%, and there was a 6.5%. So even if we would have had one of those types of amounts, it would have still have been not a lot more money than what we estimated in March. There was only 2 years that we had larger in double digits. We had one year at 12.4% and one year at 16.8%. So it's very unusual. I mean, it's not happened in 17 years that AV comes in at a 17.8% increase. So that's really what happened with, it's good news. It gives us a lot of extra money. So, that's really the driver of the additional revenue. So now if we go to the expense page 1, we'll hit the highlights on that. And under expenses, and reading the footnotes, really just summarizing them, 85% of our expense will be covered by salaries and benefits and capital expenses. Prop E, as you know, was 31 cents. It generated $7.2 million, and that turns out to be $233,000 per 1 cent of tax levy. So that's a key number to remember, $233,000 generated for every 1 cent. None of the salary schedules on certified or classified are finalized, so I just had to go with a budget estimate, and those estimates will be revised to match whatever final decisions are made. So since you'll see something on paper, but it's not final, and I realize that, so I'll adjust these numbers to whatever final decisions are made. But just so you know what the assumptions are, salaries and benefits go up $12.3 million, and it's really comprised, there's really two components, as hopefully you know by now. It's the market adjustments to make existing fiscal year 23 salaries competitive, and that's all funded by Prop E. That amounts to $6.3 million, salaries and benefits for that piece. Of the we had $12.3 million increase in salaries and benefits, 6.3 of that is due to the market adjustments funded by Prop E. And then there's $4.8 million increase just for the normal traditional raise that we would tack on for the fiscal year 24 raise. And then we have a $1.2 million increase for health insurance, which is primarily driven by the 22% increase at the start of 2023. And it looks like I'm just budgeting a 2% raise in 2024. So things at this point look, much better for health insurance rates this next year. So when you're looking at, there'll be salary schedules, summary schedules that I'll put out in the budget once we get final decisions made. But as you're looking at salaries this year, unlike really all other years, the raises are really based on competitive market. It's not percentage based. So you can't really look at percentages. I say to people, if the market is $10 and you're being paid $6 and you get a raise of $4, that's a 67% increase. But that doesn't mean anything because the market is 10, and that's the only thing that means anything. It's what's the market. So, on these schedules, you can get all kinds of in the weeds of slicing and dicing this all kinds of ways, but in the end, these schedules, which once again do not mean that the final decision is this, it's just, it's just one starting point. So the teacher salaries would go up $5.1 million, classified salaries going up $2.8 million, admin salaries going up $1.1 million. And once again, there's all kinds of ways of slicing that out between, what was the market adjustment, what's the fiscal year 24 adjustment. We can talk endlessly on that kind of stuff, but I'm not sure how meaningful it is until we actually get final decisions. So anyway, at this point, that's the highlights of the budget, and open for questions.
Do you have anything?
I have a feeling we're probably going to be revising this at least once, if not twice, before end of calendar, just because the state is obviously fixated on reducing property taxes, or at least driving them down for select portions of the population, as well as just changing the general tax rate itself.
Well, and that's one of the options that I said, letting the dust settle to see what future government funding is going to be like, because if we end up having, revisions to the whole assessed value and, tax funding, that's one of the factors we've got to look at.
And also the fact that the legislature has pretty much done exactly nothing to get any legislature completed. There's already talk about having at least a special session, if not more than one special session, depending on what shakes out in the next few weeks. But taxes are definitely an item that's been bounced around a bit, and it really hasn't made it any further forward than where it's been. The budget is going to be, for the state, is going to be going to conference next week, so I think there's going to be a lot of dust that's going to settle in the next 3 weeks, and then possibly into the summer, if not the fall.
Right, and that's why, yeah, that's exactly right. And that's why I think we've got to just keep our eye on what government funding changes there would be, because that could be significant.
But if we can continue putting money into the capital fund at this rate, then I think we will definitely be good for future projects moving forward, so that's a good thing to have done.
Well, it certainly helps the chances of whether eliminating or reducing the amount that we have to go to the community for tax increases.
Or those oops, something happened projects that we know always happen when we least expect them.
Right.
All right, thank you.
I have a question to clarify. You said assessed value is typically we can't go beyond 5%. This year it was 17.8, and because there was a tax ballot in that year, we get to keep all of it. So does that mean next year does it go back to only 5% next year? How does that, I don't understand that.
Yeah, so in this particular year, we're lucky. With AV going up 17.8, we keep the whole thing. Now the following year, it's a non-reassessment year, so it really won't change other than like new construction. But then the following reassessment year, so the next, what is this, the next odd year, 2025, if values go up over 5%, let's say they go up 10%, then we can only keep the 5%. So it's just the ballot year only. So any future assessment years, if it goes up more than 5, we're back to the normal rules where you only keep 5%.
Unless there's a ballot on the,
Yeah,
there's an issue on the ballot. And win, lose, or draw that ballot issue? I mean, if you lose the ballot issue, you still.
No, that's
only
if you,
get it?
that's if, yeah, because it actually resets the tax rate.
Got you. And then in terms of moving any money to capital, we don't have to make that decision theoretically until September, right?
Right, September at the tax rate hearing, when we're setting the tax rates, that would be the final decision.
Okay. And if we decided to move money to capital, we can't move it back to operations once we've made that decision?
That's my understanding. And the thing about moving the money to capital, you're limited on how much you can move. So we already moved $1,750,000 due to Prop R, and roughly our cap from DESE is about $4 million. So if you're already moving $1,750,000 from Prop R over to capital, you don't have a lot of room to move a lot of other stuff. So on your tax rate here in September, you pretty much got to know what you're going to levy into the capital fund.
Okay. Anybody else? Nothing? Okay. I don't believe we have to do anything, so thank you very much, and thank you for all the thorough information. Next is consider salary schedules. I guess that's Dr. Gaines? Oh, no, it's Dr. Pike. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Good evening. So this evening, we're going to talk about classified salary schedules. We have uploaded the 23-24 classified salary schedules for your review on eBoards. Just to recap what Prop E does for classified employees and salaries, Prop E was passed obviously by our voters to fund salaries to recruit, not just recruit, but retain our high-quality teachers and support staff for our students. All employees will receive a fiscal year 23 adjustment, which is our Prop E, along with fiscal year 24 increase to bring their pay up to, like Marshall talked a little bit about, that competitive level. And the pay increase is a one-time increase made in addition to their annual pay that takes into account their cost of living increases. So you will see that across the board in all departments and all job duties and titles as we review these salary schedules this evening. So our classified staff, they are any employee that do not hold state certifications to teach. These are our bus drivers, custodians, school food nutrition, our technology staff, Our nurses are also part of this support staff, but negotiations have not started for that employee group yet, so we will not be bringing you those salary schedules this evening. We'll bring you those later after negotiations have completed. Our proposed salary schedules for our classified staff, you'll see that each of these categories have different pay increases, but those are based on our current competitiveness, and we know that some of those categories for our employees were further behind than others based on school district analysis that we did across our region and also within the industries. We worked with directors to do some salary studies outside the field of education because we know that within our support staff, we're pulling our employees that we need to support our school district in the industry of carpentry, electrician, HVAC, bus driver, kitchen maintenance. These are industries that we have to be marketable, we have to be competitive in outside industries, and you're not going to find necessarily comparable salary comparisons within other districts, or you may see that some of those salary schedules may look different because in different districts they may classify them differently. So it is important that we look at the market study as well as the school district study. So we looked at all different types of data when we looked at the competitiveness of those salary schedules. As a retention strategy, we also provided a bigger pay increase every 5th year that an employee stays within our district. So every 5th year, they will see an increase within that salary schedule. And then we also took a firm look at providing pathways for growth and development for our support staff. We want to ensure that when we hire you as a Melville School District employee, that you feel valued and you see clear opportunities of growth within our system, and that those paths are clearly lined out and you have the opportunity to grow, and that we felt was a powerful retention opportunity for us to highlight. So what did we do as part of our process for looking at salaries before we just kind of dive into the salary schedules? Some of the things that we did in human resources, partnered with the business office, partnered with the support staff directors. We reviewed job descriptions, market comparisons, job titles and duties that were comparable to job duties within their own department. We analyzed comparable district data that had somewhat similar job titles, with the understanding that this is difficult to do because sometimes that's apples and oranges when you look at other districts. Those job titles may not be the same. We used the salary comparison study from December 22 kind of as a guide when determining the salary schedules, and some things just to note from there that you will see that we definitely fulfilled in our salary schedules. All support staff salaries are now at a minimum of $15. We have increased bus drivers beyond the 15 cents that we looked at initially doing. Parents as teachers had an increase of $2.15. Office personnel, which used to be the secretarial and business office scales, and we'll talk a little bit about that merge, increased $1.60. And then we looked at cleaning up some variances in some of the step values. When you looked at our district overview for support staff at a glance, and you put them all along a continuum, we noticed that some of our step 1 minimums may have been higher, but their step 16 maximums may have been lower. And so as we started to analyze that, we cleaned up some of those inconsistencies along the scale so that if I was moving along that scale, I would continue to grow within our own district and own departments. We combined, like we just talked about, salary structures as appropriate. So if I am a secretarial or a business office professional, I am now considered an office personnel, and that is consistent with what a lot of other school districts are doing. So if I come in as a building secretary, I know that I have the opportunity for growth and development by moving to a director secretary, but possibly maybe I want to join and look at merging into a payroll office or accounts payable, or I see those opportunities for growth, not just in one department, but now I have the opportunity to grow in 2. We have also looked at historical data dating back to 2015-16 and looking at the differences in how we have basically designated or given out kind of salaries throughout those years over the last 8 years where those salaries have been given, and in some departments how it has shrunk and not necessarily, we haven't gained any headway in maybe a custodian to a head custodian, but in some situations we have closed those gaps, so we have worked to widen those gaps and for opportunities for growth as well. We adjusted scales both at step 1 and all throughout the scale to not only support the advancement of individual departments, but Melville's organization as a whole. And both step 1, which is our minimum, and step 16 is our maximum salaries increase, as well as the step differential as you move up the district at a glance view that we are using in human resources kind of as our overview. We distributed not only the fiscal year 23 adjustment funds, but the fiscal year 24, and we used that as kind of our analysis as we went all the way through. We will continue to do this on an annual basis. This is not a one-time thing, but for our human resources department, partnered with the business office and classified directors, these conversations and this data collection will be ongoing so that we can maintain this level of competitiveness or know exactly where we need to be, whether it's yearly or, like I like to say to the directors the other day, bi-yearly, right? So that we always know that the market is changing. And some of these jobs are not educational jobs, they're not certificated jobs, so we have to make sure that we are paying attention to the industry and what is changing. So if we look at some of the movement that has happened in facilities, we track this information in human resources, the number of openings we currently have, and this is a little small, but I wanted you to be able to see that over the course of the last 2 years, some of the movement that has taken place just within our classified staff departments, and specifically by job duty. And it shows you the retirement numbers, the resignation numbers, when an individual and how many individuals are transferring out of that position, and then how many we are truly hiring in and transferring in that specific department. You will see those crossover of numbers because remember those are June 30th and then we pick up their July 1st. So some of those June 30 retirement and resignations, then we're quickly hiring them July 1. So some of those numbers may cross over there, but we already have some openings that are coming up July 1. We know those retirements are going to happen July 1. So those are pre-July 1 numbers. That shows you the turnover, and again, consistent where the need is to increase that to get to competitive for custodian and head custodian numbers. Some of the impact to the hard-to-fill jobs within that department that you probably noticed, some of the increase. Step 1 in 22-23 was at 14, step 6. So if you come into the district, we will give you 5 years of job-like experience. So we will place you on step 6 with that job-like experience. So that's why I wanted you to see that cost that you could come into the district with that step 6 at $16.40. Now, if you come into the district on step 1 at $16.25, you'll be making $19.45 with that step 6 if we give you that 5 years experience. I also wanted to highlight for you groundskeepers. In 22-23, we started this position at $14.10. At step 6, if we had job-like experience, we would start you at $16.35. This year, we moved that position up to $17.50, and step 6 to $20.70. You may look at that and think, that seems significantly different. But what we will tell you when we did that 8-year analysis and we looked historically back, over years, we closed that gap because we inputted money into the facilities department because that's the funds that we had, but then we shrunk the difference between a custodian and a groundskeeper. So we were then paying them the same, but back in 2015, there was almost a $2 difference. So what we did is we've now widened that difference back to then be able to hopefully grab those those groundskeepers. And if you can see here, that is another field that we are having a hard time. That is where the turnover is as well. So again, we are trying to address some of that. Office personnel, you can see the high turnover in building secretary and director secretary, again, where we have invested a lot of money and a lot of funds into those scales. So building secretary in 22-23, step 1, $14.65, step 6, $16.98, and in 23-24, step 1 is $18.25, and step 6 is $21.45. Over the course of 8 years, we have invested 80 cents into our building secretaries. And this is one that, again, you can see the high turnover of that position. And building secretaries, they are a huge component, and just like all of our classified staff, but they are the first people you see when our students come into the building and our parents come into the buildings, and they're the last ones usually that they see and greet our kids. Transportation, we have 13 openings. You see the turnover here for bus drivers. And bus monitors was turnover as well. And so our bus drivers are at 17 and 1969 and 2223, and they are going to 1855 and 2324 to 2175. And school food, again, there is that turnover for school food technicians. High turnover numbers. And then again, they are moving from 1385 to 1550, and that step 6 is 1567 to 1870. And IT, they are a consistent department. They're a well-oiled machine, I like to say, in IT, and they make us go around. Not as much turnover in IT, but still, just to give you an idea of the funds and the difference, 2750 and to 3189 step 6 to 2975 to 3395. So still an increase for the fiscal year 23 and 24 raise. And then assistants, we have our cafeteria recess monitors, which we know those individuals are supervising sometimes 70, 80, even sometimes 90 students, not by ratio, but on a playground at recess. And that turnover, those relationships, that consistency for students, sometimes we have seen a high turnover rate of our cafeteria recess monitors and our paraprofessionals in the last couple of years. And so to give you an idea of our cafeteria recess monitors, that has gone from 1385 step 1 to 1550, and then 2223 step 6 to 1567 to 1870. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have this time.
Yes, thank you for all this information. It's great information. Lots of work here. Do you have in the salary comparison, there was a number that these raises would cost, which was, and I realize these are all approximates, $1,460,368. I think, Marshall, did you say in your presentation 2.8 towards classified?
Well, there's a lot of different buckets, but I know in looking at what I've received from Shannon that the pieces, they hit the targets. On the hourly increases of what she's supplied to me, they do hit the targets.
Okay, so do we know what this package that you are presenting tonight, what that target is? Do we have a number on that exactly, or?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We have there's many components.
Well, I do.
So I'm just looking. It's
2.4.
yes, it'd be 2,788 minus 370. So yeah, 1943 plus 475.
1943 plus 475?
Right.
All right.
And the file that I looked at this afternoon did hit those targets.
Okay. So that's all been confirmed? Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Any discussion about this? Nothing? Okay.
Well, I can just say that I think it's great that we're taking a step towards making it better and retaining these valuable people. So I thank you for doing all this work.
Tori's still thinking. Do we, and I mean, I've, as much as possible, took all of your numbers and compared them to our salary comparison, which is what we promised the community in Prop E. And so that was, I just wanted to confirm that we were in line with the numbers. So we're a little bit higher than that, but with the increased assessed value, I'm going to assume that, I mean, we theoretically got more money for each penny. So we're good still. Okay. Was that? All right, anybody else have any questions? Okay. So, sorry. If I could please get a motion to approve the salary schedules as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your help
Thank
and your
you.
work and all that stuff. I'm sure lots of people help, so thank you.
Good evening. Tonight I have the opportunity to just give you a simple update on our strategic plan, and my component specifically is around personalized student preparation. So I believe this is the third time in the last year or so I've had the chance to be able to provide you information, and the goal for our strategic plan for a number of us is to give ongoing periodic updates so that you know where we are continuing to grow. And so in this area, when we talk about pathways, just know that we're talking about career clusters, so jobs that are kind of embedded in particular areas, and part of the personalized student preparation as well as around learner profiles. So, as mentioned, here's an overall summary. You've seen this before. It outlines the 5 steps of our strategic plan, the 5 themes of our strategic plan. And so specifically, what we would want to focus on here tonight is theme 1, which you'll see talks about pathways, career clusters, as well as co-creating profiles, those both learner profiles and in-time employee profiles as well. So when you start drilling down into the details of each component or subcomponent of our strategic plan, one of the things that you'll see will be developing themed school criteria, and another piece you'll see here in just a moment will be about, talking specifically about what are the components of those. So when we look at themed schools, our task is to be able to create an application process for those schools that want to be able to pursue it. You'll see in a little bit again, but it's a voluntary process. No school is being required to pursue any level of a themed school. It's voluntary. So we do have some schools that are continuing to explore and put some plans in place around that. I would say Hageman Elementary is probably our best example of that, with the ongoing place-based work professional development that the Hageman community has put in place, as well as the investment in the grounds around the area and the investment in students with regards to more place-based learning with some of their experiences they had in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We do have other elementary schools that have at least pursued pieces of that. Rogers Elementary is still doing site visits around the concept of International Baccalaureate. And again, it's a voluntary process. It may or may not necessarily lead to a themed school, a themed grade, or a themed program. But we certainly do at least see one example right now, and that would be at Hageman Elementary with the place-based learning, the environmental studies, and the investment continues to be there with partnerships in the St. Louis County Parks, with the Teton Science School, the Audubon Society, Great Smoky Mountains. We do have a number of our kids in a variety of places, considering Tremont and the field trips in which they've taken there as well. So again, we are continuing to explore opportunities for partnership with our community, both our local community as well as much further away. So we also get into the concept of choice programming and some of the cluster pieces that you'll see there. Talk about what are the classes that we're offering, what does some of the data look like specifically, and in the next couple of minutes I'm going to walk you through some expanded data. My goal here is each time is to give you a little bit more and a little bit more so you can see kind of where we are continuing to be as well as how we're growing. So the pieces that we're looking for would be develop an expansion of those student choice programs, the ongoing development of the career and course planning guide, at least that's what we had called it before this most recent iteration, as well as those data sources that I mentioned. So we do have, an ongoing list of opportunities for student choice programs. We have Flex at Melville High. That will be in year 2 of implementation. Oakville High has taken more of a holistic building-wide approach around that. But there will be programs and opportunities in place for kids at both of the high schools. Obviously, we know we have our academy programs at the middle school level. We have Mosaic at the elementary school level, and we obviously have other pieces you'll see in just a minute, but My Path and early college, and we'll get into those. The career and course planning guide, we now refer to that more as our high school course description guide, and just is a little bit more accurate. It is now updated, it's available for public view, and so if you are wanting to see what that looks like now, it's under the curriculum link and then under high school course description guide on our website. So, as I mentioned a little bit about some of the identified choice programs, these pathways that kids can certainly pursue. We have things, some of these are new and some of these have been around for a few years. We have Access Point, Early College Academy. We have Make It Count. All 3 of those are with partnership with St. Louis Community College. Obviously, I know you full well know the My Path opportunities that we offer. We also have choices with South County, South Tech High School, STL CAPS, and we also have been continuing to research and pursue other opportunities in the dual credit advanced placement and the dual enrollment areas as well. And so those occur through either local means with AP, and it could also be through St. Louis Community College, Missouri Baptist, University of Missouri St. Louis. There's a lot of post-secondary institutions that continue to provide our kids with further opportunities that certainly I think that any of us would have had when we were certainly in school. We also look at the curriculum development aspect of how do you expand access? We also have to develop the programs. So one of the things that we do is, and you've seen this before, but it's a regular look as to how do we go about looking at our curriculum, how do we rewrite our curriculum, where do we do the curriculum adoption, where do we adopt our resources. So that's on a 7-year cycle. And so right now you can see it's at least laid out through 27, 28. There's actually more years to that SNP as well. And it's an ongoing rotation of a 7-year period. We do that in partnership with the business office so that we can ensure that from a year-to-year basis we're pretty steady with regards to the amount of money so we don't have significant fluctuations from one year to another. You don't want to spend $3 million in one year and $400,000 in another. So we've also been able to redo our curriculum development schedule to make it a little bit more financially stable so we can more easily plan for it. Curriculum course, I mentioned this before, but to give you an idea of what do we currently offer? Well, we have 294 courses that we offer at our high school levels. And obviously that also consists of the ICAP process, which is the individual career and academic plan. It starts in the 8th grade. So we start to generate interest in that process, but obviously before kids are getting to high school. In reality, we do counseling lessons around career exploration and a number of other things really as early as kindergarten. Because when you look at the overall standards, there's lots of mentions in that comprehensive curriculum resource that DESE provides. Career education is really a piece we start working with kids on very, very early on. One of the data pieces, and you'll see a few data pieces in this next pieces, I want to try to highlight this for you so you get a better understanding of it when you start looking at it by the highlighted color. Graduation rates are certainly going to be one key measurement when we start looking at whether or not students are successful, student preparation. And so you can see that from the high school level, we have 4-year, 5-year, 6-year, and 7-year rates. And so, when you think about, well, how does a 5-year rate work or a 6-year rate work? Well, to start simple, a 4-year rate, assume for a second you have a cohort of 100 kids, and let's say 90% of them graduate, so 90 out of 100. You may have a kid or kids that, those other 10 kids that in their 5th year, you might have 5 more graduate. So a 5-year rate would be 95%. So the goal there is, and you can see through each of the highlighted columns working from the top down to the bottom left, is that the number in that 7-year rate is going to be the highest rate. And so, we want our 4-year rates certainly to be high, but we also look at it from a lens of a longer term lens. We want our 7-year rates, we want to try to capture and give every kid the opportunity. be able to graduate from high school, because we know from a student preparation standpoint, that's a pretty important piece. The next few snips are from DESE. And so it talks about, here are ways to measure indicator readiness, student preparation. And so here are percentages of students who earn an indicator or have some level of success for the next level. You can see AP, dual credit, dual enrollment. So you can see those are things that we've already talked about and we continue to invest in. You also recognize International Baccalaureate, although that's not a high school piece. That's the reason why schools like Rogers Elementary continue to have conversations around that. And we offer Project Lead the Way. We have stackable credentials we also work with our technical schools with as well. From a graduate follow-up standpoint, again, student prep, making sure that kids are fully prepared. You can see here the rates where kids have gainful opportunities after graduation. So here's kind of where our kids go, according to the most recent class of 2022 data. Obviously, class of 2023 data won't be available until December 23, January 24. But you can see majority of our kids do go on to 2-year and 4-year schools. You can see about 20% of our kids are employed, and you can see there's a small percentage of students that are marked as unknown, and that's simply because despite best efforts, they don't fill out the graduate follow-up information that is requested both at the building level and then at the central office level. Dr. DeWally is the one who manages that piece on the back side of it, does an excellent job with it, but we always have a few percent of kids that it's very difficult to track down. A couple of other features, when we talk about success rating, you start to see students who are in school 85% or more of the time. So our scores are about 3 to 4% above that. You know, for those in terms of the counselors, they're tremendous and they help greatly with this. That individualized career and planning and academic planning plan, we're at 100%. That process is occurring at the middle school levels, it's occurring at the high school levels. And then percentage, I know it's early, but you start to looking at kindergarten readiness. And so we have processes in place to talk about school readiness for kindergartners too. So, because student preparation is not just a secondary and post-secondary thing, it starts as early at the age of 4 or 5. And the last few pieces that you'll see here around students' preparation if they're college and career ready deal with various data sources like ACT scores and the 180-day follow-up, the graduation follow-up. This SNP is most recently from the class of 22. It's a 5-year look at things. This represents the number, either the number of students or the percentage of students who met all of those college readiness benchmarks. And so I snipped those as well so that you had an idea of, well, what are the scores around a college readiness benchmark? You know, in science, it's 23 on an ACT, and in English composition, it's only 18. So it's having an understanding of that. And so you can see that from a district to state comparison, we're within a few percent, and that number has, over the last few years, and I think many would point to the signs of COVID, probably be more drastic in some areas than other. And so I think when you look at our kids overall and the achievement, you know, certainly it's very evident that COVID did have a negative impact, and that's going to be something that we're going to have to unpack and work our way through. You can see some of the other assessments that we also use when we talk about college and career readiness. AccuPlacer, ACT Work Keys, the ASVAB, which is military, and those industry recognized credentials, which are those stackable credentials. So there's a lot of ways to measure career readiness, college and career readiness, and ultimately, again, that student preparation component. This slide represents our graduation follow-up. A few observations from it. When you look at from the class of 20, this one was 21 because DESE always runs a year behind with regards to data, that our dropout rate was only a little over 1%. And so just when we talk about that cohort working its way down in terms of you're trying to get to 100% graduation rate, that's a pretty positive sign. Having a 1% or so dropout rate is pretty solid. And it doesn't mean that there's not room to grow, but it means that it's certainly, you know, we are historically performing at the high school level, I think, pretty well. And as we expand some of the enrollment opportunities, some of the numbers that you'll see, we have 416 kids taking 553 credit opportunities around dual credit. And so you can see some of those partner districts and partner secondary organizations that I mentioned before. South Tech, we have 145 kids that are enrolled, and they're enrolled in 24 different types of programs from first semester data. With regards to advanced placement, we have data from both Melville and Oakville in terms of the number of kids who are taking assessments and how they are scoring on assessments. So 5 is the highest that you can get, and so what you're wanting to see, certainly are 3s or above when you get to AP examinations. And by and large, you can see we're running about 65%. Some areas are higher, some areas are a little lower. We have an early college enrollment, mentioned that before. We have 16 kids currently at St. Louis Community College spending their time, which is really a full experience when you do the early college. That's the piece where the district pays tuition. And for the kids to be able to have that experience, they're ultimately leaving with associate's degrees more often than not. We have the Make It Count program. That's for second semester seniors only. So as of most recently, we had 8 kids, 4 from each side, taking advantage of that. And when we think about personalized student prep, we also have the learner profile component. And so just to highlight some pictures more than anything else and to identify a little bit of a timeline, the work has continued throughout the course of this school year around learner profiles. The committee has some action steps to be able to take us from that concept in theory to an actual practical step of having some things in place. And so right now, you can see some of the work that's been highlighted. We talk both about the kids as well as the employees around getting an understanding of what's their why and ultimately what are their strengths. It's more of a strengths-based approach. And figuring out where do we go and how do we use that information. So we are, I'd say, pretty close within the next semester to be able to have some highlighting pieces going on and to be able to start being able to use some, at least the student data, to be able to make some good decisions with that. It's probably taken a little bit longer than what we originally anticipated, but it's been good work and it's been really strong conversations. Dr. Lewis, well, soon to be Dr. Lewis, as of Saturday, Sadie Lewis has been leading the charge with regards to that. So I would open up for any questions that you may have.
All right, I don't have any questions. I have a couple comments. I just think your work has really grown in a great way, especially the student showcase out there shows all of this work. I have a cute story. Last night I came home from work and my husband had my daughter's car taken apart. I'm like, what on earth are you doing? And he was saying a few choice words. And so our neighbor says, well, let me call my grandson. And he calls his grandson. He's an Oakville student that goes to South County Tech and does auto mechanics. And he, bada boom, bada bang, fixed my daughter's car and put it back together, and we were on our way. So I just thought that was a great little, the student was proud, and it was just exciting. So
It's good to know South County Tech students. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
On that note, I was wondering, we have 145 students from the district at South County Tech right now.
In 24 various programs, yes.
Is that up or down from in the past?
Oh, Gene, I'd have to look in terms of that. I would like to believe it's fairly steady, but I'd have to pull some data to know where that's at. You would have to also make the assumption that our high school enrollments have kind of fluctuated a little bit. So I would imagine that our population has probably
I'm
went
just
with that
always
fluctuation.
fascinated why there's not more kids that are interested in that, so.
Yeah,
Anyway.
Sometimes it's just the number of spots that are available that they
Yeah, well,
allocate to the high schools.
There's that too. Yeah.
And there's also, growing criteria, increased academic, achievement data that's
Right.
required. There are just more competitive spots.
Right,
Maybe
right.
than what it
It's
was.
such a great opportunity, though. I
Agreed.
mean, it really is, so.
Agreed, it definitely
All of
is.
these are great opportunities, but I mean, for that sector of student who doesn't plan on higher education, it's just the premier way for them to go, so.
I agree.
I have a question. When you spoke about the kindergarten readiness assessments, do those take place prior to the start of kindergarten, or is it in the beginning? And how is that handled? Can you explain that?
Sure. So the process has changed very recently with the adoption of the MSIP 6 component
Right.
with the kindergarten readiness component. So it used to be where it was just a simple mark as, are you the age of 5? Yes, you are ready. Then there was a concept of using the Dial 4 screener tools. And so we had sweep teams that would go out during the course of summer school, and even prior to summer school, the second semester of the preschool John Kerry experience. And then we would take that and try to take that into a little bit of the first semester and then share those results with kindergarten teachers. They found them very helpful. And so now that concept has changed, and there's kind of MSIP points in the line with it. So we'll be next year using a kindergarten observation form, the KOF. And so ultimately what will happen is within the first 2 to 6 weeks of school, that each kindergartner will be screened. It's about a 10-minute screening. And so we can't do any of the work prior to the end of July, because there has to be training first. I was hoping to be able to take advantage of summer school and try to get as many kids done and take some workload off of folks. Can't do anything until the end of July. We're putting plans together on trying to create a sweep team to be able to come in and help be supportive of our kindergarten teachers and figuring out how to make that happen within the first 6 weeks of school. That data is then reported to DESE through the October data cycle.
So it'll involve the kindergarten teachers as well as you mentioned a team of people to support them or support the assessment?
Yes, that's the goal. We're trying to figure out the logistical pieces of that.
Yeah.
It's new for all districts really this year. Some have used this tool before, many have not.
Okay.
And so we reviewed all the different options that were available, and we felt what we had was the most efficient use of time. There are longer tools that are much more thorough, but we felt with that and the financials, there's no cost. The state is picking up the cost for this particular kindergarten tool that we're using. So we felt between the cost and the time allocation of it, that it was the most efficient way to be able to get it done.
Okay.
So will the state, the MSIP regulation cause those that have already had the dial for to do it over again?
No.
No, okay.
It's just for incoming kindergartners.
Okay.
So it's only that one year of time. We'll do it on an annual basis. And what we have to be able to do from a district is we have to have 95% or above get tested. I'm not concerned about that because once we have kids in our building, we'll find ways in which to be able to make that happen, hopefully in a very efficient way.
Are you saying, so if they did dial 4, that they wouldn't be required? Is that what you were asking?
I was asking if they'd have to redo it under the new regulations
Oh,
of
I see.
MSIP
Okay.
6. Yeah.
And the answer to that was
Right.
no,
Okay.
they would not.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Anybody else? Scott, you're good?
I do have a question about the theme school. So in your presentation, and forgive me for not emailing you this question in advance, but there's under the resource allocation, it's just listed as being from the curriculum budget. Do you have any idea the amount of budget that's allocated for that and the amount of time that's put in related to the theme schools?
Well, with regards to Woolwind Elementary, I believe right now there's been about $16,000 spent on the professional development side of things. There's nothing else because that's really what we've been able to do with them right now has been more training. Any of the costs that were associated with the outdoor space, I believe, came through grants through the Missouri Department of Conservation. So roughly in terms of district-wide budget, for this past, for FY23, I believe it's around $16,000 in professional development money.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the information. Next is Prop S update. Dr. DeKemper.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's been a busy time to monitor the progress that we are making towards the implementation of Prop S, and we're about to move into our busiest season. It's also a very exciting time because you can see visible signs that we are nearing completion of 2 major projects that started last summer, as well as beginning the process of starting 4 new schools. And I'm pleased to report there are no oops moments to share with you. So, as we get into this, Beer Bomb has been very exciting lately. It's been a while since we've talked, but there was work that continued over spring break. And the big news was that the rooftop unit that we had been waiting on for so long finally arrived and was placed last week. Now that means that cabinetry, casework, ceilings, flooring, etc. will begin to take place at an accelerated pace. And so we had been waiting on that for some of those touches to go in. That was good news because it did arrive a few days earlier, and they expect to fire it up next week. We also have a meeting next week with our summer contractors, and we are eyeing a final occupancy inspection on July 10th of 2020. That will be very exciting for us. And just for detailing purposes, Dr. Morse, as well as Dr. Booker at Blades, have been selecting and getting the furniture approved, and it's all being ordered this week. You've seen this slide before, but it's especially important today because today bids were due for phase 2. And we had 6 contractors submit bids. That level of competition was favorable for us. So we will be in the process of reviewing the quality of those bids over the next month. And then May 18th, we will bring a recommendation to the board for phase 2. So very exciting day for us at JB. Blades Elementary looks fantastic. The glasswork and the concrete have been completed. Dr. Booker is taking selfies on the new carpet. There's phased occupancy with the art storage room opening. The classroom that is being added looks fantastic. The natural lighting in that classroom is really something that will set it apart from some of the other classrooms that have existed for years. And again, the detailing is being done. I'm excited for you to be able to see the progress that has been made at Blades Elementary. We've had some favorable weather in regards to the ball field, and we were also able to get some of our permits approved when it came to the baseball dugouts. And so that work has really accelerated over the past week and a half. It's always nice to see construction taking place while games are taking place so that our community can see the work happening. They had initially told me, we had some email conversation this week, but they thought that irrigation, some of the infield dirt work would actually take place in May. They're moving a little bit faster than what they expected. And they're hoping that they can fire up the sprinklers by tomorrow afternoon. Next week at the latest, but it's really accelerated the past week and a half. And so we have some work scheduled in the next 3 months, but overall we're pleased with the progress being made and concerns about this project dragging out beyond the anticipated time. Hageman Elementary, as you know, will begin to be worked on over the summer as soon as students let out. Mike, Joe Gibson, and myself have met with some of the vendors. We're getting quotes now. We plan to electrify the doors, safety film. Paul Westbrook is adding a camera. We're going to upgrade carpet in the office and in the commons area. It's going to look really sharp, and we'll be doing that work ourselves. Do not anticipate that that will drag into the new school year at this time. We're still finalizing some of the details to add ADA accessibility to the playground, but that is part of the Prop S work that needs to take place as well. And in addition to Hageman, we'll have Point Elementary going out to bid soon, John Kerry and Melville High School later in the summer. We've really made it a point to try to have conversations with people when we're in buildings and continue to engage our stakeholders. Last week, Dr. Gaines brought all of the principals who will be experiencing construction over the next school year together. We shared updated conceptual plans, and then we let them hear from principals who have lived with construction while school is in session, as well as ask any questions. We're doing our best to keep everyone informed and share that excitement as the work continues to take place. Dr. Gaines. I'm done.
So you will recall that last April and then again in June, you guys passed resolutions around pulling in additional monies to help offset costs. So as you've seen with some of that revised scheduling and the resolution that you had adopted a year ago, some of those timeframes have changed, and some of those amounts in that resolution have now changed. So we've been kind of playing with where those numbers are going to land. So we will come to you with revisions on that resolution at the May meeting, so we can kind of narrow some of that down. Part of it, we've been able to pull in some additional monies. Others, projects didn't cost fully what we thought they were going to cost, so that was good news. But also, just from the time frame perspective, we're moving projects outside of that original timeframe. We really need to hit in on that stuff in FY '24. So we're going to pretty much target it all to one project. Probably the beer bomb phase 2 is how that'll land. But we'll have the details on all of that at the May meeting. Just wanted to kind of let you know that that's going to be coming because we were very specific, and so we can't land dead on those specifics. So we'll make some tweaks. Questions for Chad?
Oh, Dr. DeKemper, just as this is completely, well, it's not completely irrelevant to what we just talked about, but could you explain to the general public what happens to the old furniture? I know it follows a journey to another source of revenue.
Sure. We try to repurpose it. So first, we'll see if there's any need throughout the district. We'll share pictures via email, et cetera. A lot of the furniture never leaves the district. It just finds a new home within the district. There are some times when pieces end up on Gov Deals, and there are some times where they're just damaged and we have to dispose of them.
And isn't there a government website as well that they go to?
I'm sorry, I should have clarified on that.
Oh,
That's
okay.
Gov Deals.
Oh, Gov Deals,
And
yeah.
we will list things on Gov
I'm
Deals.
sorry, yes, good. Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
I know that I've driven by Blades as this project has been going on, and in the last couple of weeks to the last month, it definitely makes the whole frontage of that building look impressive. And it's definitely going to be nice when that's finally done.
I agree. We have visual representations of what this district can do with the community support, especially in terms of keeping students in schools safe. That is a wonderful thing to be able to talk
I mean,
about.
that entrance, as you drive by, it definitely is the focal point of that building and definitely catches your attention as you go by. And I'm actually, since I'm on facilities this coming rotation, I am looking forward to the stuff that's going to go on in the next 12 months.
All right, thank you. I agree. Blades does look awesome. Okay, consider the naming of Rogers Elementary Library. I have no idea who's doing this. Dr. Kenoy.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
It's nice to
evening.
be here, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak with you tonight. I love being an educator. I love being a principal. I loved being a teacher, and one of my favorite places in a school is a library. I consider it the largest classroom in our school, and I also consider it the heartbeat of our campus. It's a place for our students and for our teachers to go to read, to reflect, to think, to write, to create, to have their imagination reach its fullest potential. And at Rogers, we have been very fortunate over the last 21 years to have a resident of our district for 63 years who has had her children and her grandchildren attend schools within our district. And for the past 21 years, she has been a volunteer at Rogers Elementary School Library for 4 or 5 days a week. This afternoon, I was speaking with one of our librarians, and it's safe to say that math is not the forte of either of us, but we did some calculations, and we think that that might be about 15,000 hours that she has dedicated to our school, to our young little scholars, like we had young Secretary McKelvey when he was at Rogers Elementary School, had the great fortune of meeting Miss Aldi. And as a matter of fact, in 2006, she was awarded the District Distinguished Service Award. Our third grade writers wrote a series of persuasive essays. I have about 75 of them here, which you're more than welcome to read. And they utilize such words as spectacular, wonderful, amazing, inspirational, important, hero. I've read countless stories of how they wanted to have a particular book, but they couldn't find it. And Miss Aldi knows where every book is at without having to look it up in the computer or anything of that sort. I know Dr. Bressler can attest to just what a great woman that she is, and she's a treasure to our district. And I just feel that she has dedicated so much time to our library with running book fairs, checking books in, checking books out, shelving books, inventorying books. She knows generations of people on our campus, and I feel that it is more than fitting for our library to be named after her. And so I come to you tonight to make that request for that to happen.
All right. I think that's very impressive. Thank you for giving us the explanation. First, I was like, I would like to meet her. She's not here, is she?
She is not here, and I thought about bringing her, but I wasn't sure how this process worked. So
it would be kind of embarrassing if we say no.
Yeah, so if you were to say no, I didn't want to say to Miss Aldi, sorry about that.
I mean, how can you say no to a sales pitch like that? I mean, it's 15,000 hours estimated in the library of volunteer time. Sold. I mean, you can't.
Very awesome. Very appreciated. I don't think we have anything but good things to say after that wonderful presentation. I wasn't sure who wrote the, well, it's called a statement of problem on e-boards, and I wouldn't really call this a problem, but, because I'm going to assume it was you, but you didn't use the word scholars, so
that was a bit of a
I was a little confused there. Anyway.
Trying to keep you on your toes,
disguise.
keeping you on your toes there.
So no, that's really awesome, and it would be my honor to ask for a motion to approve naming the Rogers Elementary Library.
And it would be my honor to.
Bobby Aldi Library.
Oh. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. May I bring her to the next meeting?
All right.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Appreciate it. Okay, next up is student achievement. Hageman Elementary, Dr. Durham. Got it right this time.
How are you all this evening? All right, I am proud to highlight the work in progress that our students have accomplished this year. Our teachers and staff have worked hard to support our students and their families throughout our year together. So I'm going to go through some of the highlights of our year and our data. So here's our mission and our school improvement goals for the year. Hageman is proud of the work, especially around goal number 4, as we are working to support all students in a tiered model through MTSS. It has given us the opportunity to reflect on our current practices and make improvements throughout our school. Looking at our current enrollment, we have 414 students in kindergarten through 5th grade. Our kindergarten was higher this year, allowing us to have 4 kindergarten teachers instead of our typical 3. We are tracking our kindergarten enrollment for next year, and we seem to be on the higher end again, and we'll see how that holds through the summer. When looking at our historical enrollment over the last 5 years, we are definitely seeing an increase in our enrollment, with 1 year as an exception, and that was the 2021 school year due to the Melville at Home program and around COVID. Hageman is continuing to see new home construction in our attendance area and pockets, as well as a turnover of young families purchasing homes of older residents as they may move. We are above 400 this year. Before redistricting, Hageman had enrollment in the 200s, so we have seen a significant increase over the last years at Hageman with enrollment. Looking at our demographics, these are our current demographics, and they're very similar to last year. We have not seen a great deal of change there. If we look at free and reduced lunch, we've rose slightly, but overall we have remained pretty steady in that area. When we look at students that have access to special education services, we have about 18% of our students with an IEP that are receiving a variety of supports through special school district. Here is some information about our students that have received special education over the last 9 years, and we've remained pretty steady over the last 9 years, especially in the last 3, looking at that information. And as we change a little bit and talk about students, our multilingual population, we have seen a lot of change in this area, and it's been an exciting change for Hageman. We currently have 95 students within our building that are considered multilingual students, and that encompasses 20 different languages. And so this is a big shift for us. If we look at that over time, historically, you can see we've had significant growth in that area. So our English, this is a new title for her, so I always stumble over this. Our English Language Development Specialist works with students kindergarten through 5th grade to support them and their needs, as well as supporting best practices with the teachers that she supports. We've also really focused on vocabulary skills this year, not only for our multilingual students, but that was an area K-5 we needed supports, and that really benefited our multilingual students as well. So this is one area we will continue to grow in, I'm anticipating, and so we will continue to meet the needs of those students. Here is a breakdown of our students that receive LLI services, which would be a Tier 3 support for them. Again, that's pretty steady from last year. Looking at reading, so the data up here on the screen, this is based on Q3 report cards, and this shows by grade level the number of students that are reading on grade level in green. We review reading data twice a month formally in grade level meetings. Teachers are looking at that data every day. And we want to ensure that our students are receiving the right supports to continue to make that progress. And we'll compare these numbers to our final set of scores at the year end with Q4. Staying with reading, looking at our iReady data, so far this year, our students have taken the iReady benchmark 2 times. We're getting ready to take it the 3rd time. This shows our beginning of the year compared to our winter. Our students in the green doubled from the start of the year, but we want to continue to make growth. So we will look at this at the end of the year when we take the May benchmark and then determine students that may need additional supports and possible intervention next school year so we can get the ground running right away. This is a breakdown of our iReady reading by grade level. And then same for math. So our math iReady from fall to winter, we did not see as much growth in math as we did in reading. However, we're working on a plan to support our teachers around professional development next year in math, as well as our students in that area. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a future slide. And then here's a breakdown of our math iReady by grade level. Panorama. As you can see here, here's some strengths that came up for our students and our teachers, and also some areas of growth. So the emotional regulation was an area of growth for us. We have zones of regulation throughout our building as well as restorative circles, but we're looking at ways that we can continue to improve that number with our students to make sure that they feel supported. And our SEL interventionists will help us with that next year as well. So when we think about Tier 1 supports, in MTSS, that's supporting 100% of our students. On the screen are things that we've been doing over the course of the last few years. The 2 that are bolded are new for us this year. So the reading plan. Our MTSS leadership team created a reading plan by analyzing our data across all sections of iReady and determining what our students need. And then this plan has helped us to provide some consistency in our building. We've also created a fidelity checklist for teachers to check where they may need some support. This reading plan is also going to help the new teachers that we have coming in year after year. So they have that plan when they're walking in the door and they know what our expectations are at Hageman that align with district, but also with our population as a whole. And we'll continue to tweak that plan as there are changes possibly to a reading curriculum. The other one that's bolded, that's a Tier 1 support that we've added is restorative circles. We've been working closely with Ed+, and those are class meetings throughout every class within Hageman and just building that sense of community within our building. We also do them as a staff every week, and that's been a really good change for us. That's gone really, really well. Tier 2, Tier 3 supports. These are a list that we have been doing. A new one for us this year, we implemented a tier 2 time within the schedule. So every classroom teacher meets with a tier 2 group of students that might not be making the growth that we were expecting, and really drilling in on certain skills that they need additional supports on. We will continue to implement that next year, as well as add additional tier 2 supports as we work closely with our MTSS district coach through special school district. These are ways we identify our students. We use a variety of data. We just don't want to use one data source. We meet, like I said earlier, twice per month formally to analyze and discuss that progress. We use a variety of data sources, and we're looking at supports beyond the tier 1 when needed, and that's been a huge importance for us. But the main focus, and I tell my teachers, we have to have strong tier 1. That is the most important, and we're continuing to do that. As we switch and talk a little bit about access and opportunity, I know our staff is really, really proud of this. This is a list of clubs. We've had 175 students this year that have participated in a club run by a teacher in my building. So we have a lot of students that are able to build those connections outside the regular school day. And another thing I wanted to highlight, and this is a huge thank you to Jenny Bess, and also Michelle Amalong back here, my secretary that hung out all this time here with me, who have organized the community ed within our building. These are all the different community enrichment classes that Hageman was offered by Jenny Bess, and we've had 118 students participating in that this year, and that's huge. That's a huge growth for us, and we're getting so much great feedback from families. They love these. So the more the merrier, for sure, with those. Future plans. So these are obviously this time of year, we're still fully in this school year, but we're also doing a lot of planning for the 23-24 school year. So as we look to summer and next school year, I wanted to highlight real quick some of the things that we plan on doing. Based on our school data, math will be a focus for our building professional development. All early releases next year will be around math. We will also build a math plan for our building like we did in reading this year. Based on student data, we're updating our PBIS student commitments to better fit our student population because those were created a very long time ago. We have a group of teachers that have created our own mentorship program for new staff. We have 5 new classroom teachers joining us next year, so this will continue to support them in a very strong way. We also have 7 teachers attending a PLC conference with me this summer that will help guide our Tier 1 work through our grade level meetings. And one of our ESSER interventionists is leaving the role, so that has been an ELA interventionist, so I am switching that to math to help support our data, our students around that, since our data showed math being an area that we have more concerns. And then as Dr. DeKemper stated, we have our construction this summer for our security entrance and our ADA accessible playground ramp. So to wrap this up, I welcome you to stop by Hageman at any time to see the wonderful instruction and relationships that our teachers have built. And I appreciate all the support that you give our learners each and every day, so thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Moving on to Melville, Dr. Landhart.
All right, good evening again. Our team is going to kind of share this responsibility and share a little bit about our year. So kind of get us started, we're going to talk a little bit about our mission, vision, and values. So our vision statement that we've operated under for several years was ensuring high levels of learning for all. And that modeling that we want to do for our students to be committed to being those lifelong learners and showing that we're committed to finding new opportunities for our students in the classroom. This year we added that phrase of collaboration to again add that emphasis on working together and finding solutions as a team, which highlights a lot of our priorities this year. The other thing that I wanted to point out on this slide was our core values. At the end of last year, we worked with our student leadership team to discuss, did our values that we had used for several years still represent our priorities at Melville? So our leadership team developed a survey and got feedback from our staff, and then developed a lesson and an activity for our students. And through that process, we kept respect, responsibility, and relationships, but we added the phrase inclusivity. And again, kind of highlighting the fact that we're proud of our diversity at Melville and really wanted to make sure that students feel that they're connected to Melville High School and have a place there. Next, you'll see some of our school improvement goals. And again, at the heart of these goals, it focuses in on 3 things: collaboration, relationships, and that general classroom instruction, those high impact strategies that are impacting all of our students. So developing those strong teaming groups within our different departments and that PLC model. And as you heard a lot in Dr. Smith's presentation about the ICAP process and about all the different course offerings that we have, we want to make sure that our students are well versed in those offerings and develop a plan that fits their post-secondary goals. So through the work that happens in our TAP class, in our general classrooms, at the student-led conference, really making sure that students are aware and kind of thoughtful in their planning. And then that last piece, again, focusing in on those relationships and making sure that the students feel that connection to Melville High School and have that trusted adult, at least one, that they're comfortable in approaching when they need help and support. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about our data and looking at our enrollment data over the last several years. You'll see that since redistricting, we've been pretty consistent in that 1,450 to 1,500 range for our total enrollment, and our overall other statistics have stayed pretty steady. Our free and reduced lunch population, that percentage has returned to what it was pre-COVID. And one notice change that we'll see in the coming year is our EL percentage. It has been 11% of our building. We are seeing a growth in that. Next year it'll be closer to 13% of our overall building population. And one number that kind of sticks out to me, and in preparing for this report, looking back at the last 4 or 5 years, seeing that mobility rate hovering between 16 and 17% over the last 4 or 5 years, representing the number of students that transfer in and out of our building during the school year. You know, some as recently as last week, and just kind of a unique challenge that poses for us to support students that come in with various backgrounds at all different times of the year, and some that transfer in and out within the same year. Looking at our attendance data, you know, our goal is for students to be at school every day. And then from there, our next level of success is at 90% or higher. So we look at the students there in that chart on the right that are there at 90% or more. And then the next 3 rows show our students in varying different degrees from 80 to 89. And that population of students are students that Abby, Katie, and Brian, as well as our counselors, our TAP teachers, know very well, looking at what supports do they need and what interventions can we put in place to help with their attendance on a regular basis. And then that last column of students that are below 80% represent some students that have maybe been interested in virtual learning due to a reason that was keeping them from attending. They may have tried that and had success or came back. So that's a different group of students. We're working with our MTSS coach to develop a Tier 3 team that's really looking at interventions that would support that group of students and finding the appropriate program for them. Next. Clicker would work, there we go. Kind of highlighting some of the similar programs that Dr. Smith talked about with our career readiness and choice programs. We've seen some steady enrollment in those programs like CAPS and MyPath, continued strong partnerships with South Tech and our community-based vocational programs through Special School District. We spoke last year a lot about our Flex program and have seen some great things with that this year, both from our teacher group that have poured a lot of hard work into that, and then our students and kind of the growth that they've had in some of those, you know, those really important skills of time management and that self-awareness of their strengths. We're looking to see some continued growth from that in the future. Turn things over to Abby, who'll talk a little bit more about some of our classes.
Hi, so to carry out that mission that we have to ensure high levels of learning for all, we're really proud of the classes that we offer at Melville High School that allow students to get real-world applications. In that bottom middle picture, you can see some of our robotics students who partnered with the transportation department to create mock buses to teach elementary school students about bus safety. In addition to that program, we offer AMPT, which is a Algebra 1 class that is modeled after a business model, where students work every day to create different products for Melville High School. And just recently, they produced over 600 t-shirts for the Special Olympics event. In those top 2 pictures, you can see some of our students who work in geometry and construction. One of the most recent projects that they worked with, John Kerry, they built a treehouse for students to use. And then I'm going to turn it over to Katie to talk about the ICAP.
So our students here at Melville High School, they're utilizing ICAP, SCORE, as well as the Missouri Connections to not only help them plan their 4 years here and their course selections based upon their talents, interests, and strengths, but they're also utilizing those programs in a beneficial way to support them after high school and really making connections on what programs they want to go into, whether it be college, university, career path, whatever it might be. Those programs are really helping students to make connections, but also being exposed to things that they may not have even realized that are out there through those programs.
So to expand upon some of the interventions that we offer at Melville High School, our math interventionist has been specifically targeting students in our Algebra 1 classes. This Algebra 1 interventionist has worked with over 93% of our students. With those students that she's been targeting, we've seen growth in 93% of them. Some students moving from half of a grade level all the way up to 3 grade levels. With seeing this impact that the interventionist has had, our Algebra 1 teachers have actually taken it upon themselves to work to provide increasing supports to our students during tap time. So those teachers have been using their common summative assessments to identify students who are falling in that 3 to 6 range. And then we've had 2 teachers who are polling those students during tap time to work with them individually to provide them with more instructional supports. Using that data of the students who were polled, we saw about 75% increase out of that 3 out of 6 range and into 4, 5, and 6. So we're seeing a lot of great things come out of our math interventionists and our Algebra 1 teachers as well.
Our ELA interventionist at Melville High School, Alyssa Yo, she's been really targeting our English 1 and English 2 students that had their data for their STAR reading assessment that was in the critical category. So based upon those students in the small groups that she's working with, whether it be one-on-one or small group during TAP, we have seen 60% of those students that are now on grade level after those intervention plans. And of those students that she's worked with, we've also seen 95% that have growth after that intervention. So keeping up with the interventions from this year, we're really excited to see how much more growth we can make for the following, or for the next school year.
Another source we've utilized is the data that we get from Panorama. So one of the first things that we noticed with our last that was done in the winter was that across the board, in the 3 areas that we focus on, the skills and competencies, the sense of belonging, and then the diversity and inclusion, that we saw increases, some of them minimal and some of them quite noticeable, 8-10% increase. So some of those are displayed up here. To go back to what Dr. Lander said about how do we reach those kids to get them into school, one of the things that we felt compelled to do was to look at the data about how many of those students feel connected to an adult in the building. So the graphic there on the bottom right, you'll see we're at a 47%, which sounds bad, but if you further disaggregate it off to the left there, you'll see that 80% of our students at least feel somewhat connected to an adult in the building, which leaves still 20% of students that we have to find ways to reach those. So once we looked at that latest data, we reflected on some of those areas of focus, and then we met with our leadership team to discuss how can we reach some of those kids as well as all of our students. And so we, after we had that meeting, those leadership team members then had breakout sessions where they taught teachers how to look at data using Panorama, but then they also showed them how they could use the playbook, which then provides those level 1 or those tier 1 and tier 2 interventions that they can use in their classrooms every day. The tier 3 interventions that we look at, we got data from our CHADS counselors. Right now, 43 individuals are currently seeing a CHADS counselor. Throughout the year, over 350 counseling sessions have been held with those kids, including anger management, empowerment, and then connecting with other teens. Off to the right, you can see some of our data, the percentage of growth that those students have experienced and the teachers have reflected on with the Panorama data in regards to SEL. And then 2 more here with the groups, anger management, an increase in behavior, an increase in those competencies and a decrease in behaviors. And then the empowerment group, you can see the students reflecting on how they feel they've grown in this past year with those percentage increases as well.
Celebrating diversity is one thing that is extremely important here at Melville High School, one of our core values being inclusivity. If you can see that chart there, we have around 30 languages that are spoken at Melville High School. And we actually have 11 seniors that just earned their seal of biliteracy. And some ways to showcase our diversity and ways that we do that within the high school, you'll see a picture there of our student Delara, who's made a great connection. She came from the Ukraine earlier this school year she made a great connection with our cafeteria worker, Maya, and just really making that connectedness is so important here at school. You'll also see we have our Black History celebration that was created by our Black Student Union members. And that really showcased different music, poetry, dancing that were all originally created by students of that Black Student Union to really just showcase and celebrate our diversity here at Melville High School.
And to wrap it up with some celebrations, we have a few different avenues for both staff to celebrate staff members, including that first picture there, which is the Golden Panther. We do that every month at our staff meetings. Students celebrate staff members by submitting to our leadership team different nominations for Staff Member of the Month. And then finally, staff members can celebrate students by sending these postcards here to your right to celebrate academic and personal achievements they see in the classroom. And that wraps it up for us here as the Melville team. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is action items by consent. Does anybody have anything they need to pull? Consider policy
It's
revisions,
F.
F?
F.
Okay. If I could please get a motion to approve action items A through E.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, consider policy revisions.
On the policy JECA-2, it's, I don't know, it's just a typo or what, but under the explanation, district allows non-resident students to enroll and attend only when required by law. It's about mid-page. The paragraph opens by saying the Melville School District number 9, and that's incorrect. So we need to fix it. We are not Melville School District number 9. R does not stand for number. R9 stands for reorganized. Did you find it?
So you're saying you need to change where it says the Melville School District number 9 to the Melville School District R9?
R9, yes.
So it's just one typo?
I guess it's a typo, I don't know, but I think we should fix it.
It appears that it's been that in all the other stuff, but we do need to align the language.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I'm on the policy. I'm sorry I didn't catch it there, so I apologize.
Can we still approve it with the change? Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else, Jean?
No, that's all.
Okay. So if I could please get a motion to approve action item F, changing the line in policy JECA-2 to reflect Melville R9 versus Melville number 9.
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, I don't believe we have anybody signed up for open period. Okay. If I can get an authorization of closed session.
Motion to enter a closed session for the purpose of reading of minutes of previous meetings and corrections and approval of same and other items under Missouri Revised Statute 610.021 subsection 1 through 21 and 610.022 subsection 1 through 6, hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting particular employees. Statute 610.213, legal action, causes of action, or litigation, section 610.0211.
Yes?
Yes. Lori?
Yes.
Maggie, yes. Patrick?
Yes.
Grace? Yes. Jean?
Yes.
Okay. If I could get a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I already made one, but I'll make it again. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, we'll be back in a minute.